Radio 786, 100.4 FM stereo.
Continuing with our discussions on how far we've come over the past 20 years, we look at the gains made in terms of social cohesion. The Department of Arts, Culture and Social Cohesion defines it as social integration and inclusion in communities and society at large. But has this happened for South Africa? 20 years down the line, we're joined by the Institute for Race Relations, Head of Building and Inclusive Society Program, Stan Henkeman. Welcome to the show, Stan.
Thank you very much. Can I just make a correction? It's the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation.
Okay, Institute for Justice and Reconciliation. Apologies, we've rectified it now. Stan, 20 years into democratization. Some have argued we've integrated nicely. Others have said we've become more fragmented, the pessimists that is. And then some have argued, yes, we have made gains in terms of integration and social cohesion, but we still have a long way to go. Let's look at all of those comments, because these are comments, clearly coming from communities across the spectrum in South Africa.
Mm-hmm. And there's a bit of truth in all of them. But I think it really depends on the lens that you use to look at our country 20 years on. And sadly, the one big challenge that we're sitting with is the whole notion of inequality, and that, where you stand in terms of the inequality is directly linked to how you experience South Africa 20 years on. And it is a sad fact that for the poorest of the poor, the people who are struggling to make a daily living, they've really not seen the kind of integration. They still live in the poor areas. They hardly have contact with people from other race groups. And so for them, very little has shifted in terms of relations. And I think where it has really shown improvements is really at the middle class kind of setting. But even that needs to be interrogated. The reconciliation barometer that comes out every year of 2013 stated that about 70% plus of South Africans have interaction with other races, whether it's at work or at school, and so on that kind of superficial level. But if you look at socialization, the percentage is significantly lower. And so in a way what we do have is that yes, people are talking, people are interacting, but it doesn't filter down to a friendship or social level. Now obviously one cannot legislate who should spend time with whom. But the reality is that we are pretty much still a divided society. And I think maybe we expecting too much 20 years into democracy. If you look at how long this situation has been allowed to continue, 20 years is nothing. And so I would say that yes, we have made gains. Yes, the society is more open. But when it comes down to the choices people make in terms of who they socialize with, we by and large still socialize within our groupings. And those groupings could be race-based, it could be economic, it could be area where you live. But by and large, we still do most of the social things within the groups that we are comfortable with.
Now, Stan, 20 years into democratization, let's use that as a learning curve, as a barometer for success as well, and failure. Let's look at the gains made that we can actually take from the 20 years. Going forward towards the next 20 years, gains that we can take from the 20 years we've experienced. Going forward, negatives that we've also experienced, curveballs, etc., that we can actually use those as perhaps, tools to avoid similar circumstances in the next 20 years. Surely we do have some of that, tools that we can use now.
Absolutely. I think our biggest asset that we need to use going forward is our young people. we glibly talk about the people who were born after democracy as the born free, and to a large degree, they don't have the kind of baggage that we have. Yes, of course, they are exposed to some of the things that's happening. And the problem that the generation that I'm from has, and that we need to confront, is the fact that we are really being unfair to the next generation. We are loading them, we are burdening them with the baggage that we carry. It's important for young people to know what happened. Important for young people to challenge inequality, to challenge what's going wrong. But it's also important for us to give them a fair chance to create the kind of future that they want to create. Just recently, we had a youth camp where we had about 30 young people from a range of backgrounds in the broader Cape Town area. And these young people were discussing this whole issue of, so in fact their theme was freedom to create change. Because I think that's what we need to challenge our young people with. And then invariably the discussion came to race and privilege and so on. And one brave young white lady stood up in the midst of this toing and froing and said, I understand what you're saying, I hear what you're saying, but I just want to say, I am here. And I just thought such a powerful statement, because, if we just give our young people a chance to say, I am here and I want to make my contribution without the baggage of the parents. And that's for parents across the spectrum. My own children would sometimes, accuse me of being a racist because I still carry so much baggage. And that goes for white and black and whatever color, whatever group you're from. Our generation needs to just allow our young people to find a way where they can continue the gains that have been made. And I think that is one of the biggest things that we can take going forward. I'm very encouraged when I look at young people. I'm very encouraged when I look at the way they see the world. And there's something that we should be working on. The other thing is, irrespective of the challenges we have in this country, South Africa, and this is where I need to agree with many commentators who say South Africa is a better place 20 years later. And with all the challenges, we are much better off than we were in 1994. Now, people might say, yes, we should have been much further, and that's debatable. But the fact of the matter is, we have made gains, and what we need to be careful of, is to make sure that we don't fall into the category of people who will never be satisfied. It's important that we hold our politicians and those who lead us to account. But at the same time, we've got to be fair and look back and say, in this 20 years, we have achieved quite a bit. And the biggest legacy that we can leave to our children is the legacy that Madiba left for us. And it's the legacy of saying, you know what, we're going to change the script. We're not going to fall into the habit of doing things the way we are expected to do it. We're going to do things differently, and in that way, if each person can have that kind of understanding of their role, we would have a different place. We would really look back 20 years from now and say, wow, the second 20 years really gave us exponential growth. First 20 years, always teething problems, but we have made remarkable progress in many areas.
Great stuff. Stan Henkeman, thanks so much for your time on the show. Much appreciated.
You're welcome.
Radio 786, 100.4 FM stereo.